All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. My name's Jordan Koper, and I work at Georgia College and State University. Among my different roles there, I serve as the interim executive director of the Andalusia Institute, and we're excited tonight to have a digital release party for Colin Cutler's new album, Tarwater. Colin Cutler is one of those people he's one of the most fascinating people I've ever met in my life. An amazing musician, an amazing person, a great Flannery O'Connor scholar, singer-songwriter out of Greensboro, North Carolina, but also very well-traveled. So it seems like he's kind of been everywhere. His last album, Hot Pepper Jam, I know it showed up on Spotify. I was one of the top like 10% or something. So I had that one on repeat. So I'm really excited about this one, called Tarwater. We'll learn a little more about it. And we'll also include links where you can purchase the album, and we'll have some Q&A. So just what we're going to do is we'll start with Save Your Life, and then we'll have some kind of questions and talk back about that one. And we'll do that for a few songs. We've got a lineup, and then we'll just kind of talk about practical tips being an independent artist and musician, and then wrap up. So I think we've got an exciting release. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Down the highway to Mobile, Alabama. Had one good arm and a 9-pound hammer. But I took a turn up a washed-out gravel road. Saw a little old lady just squatting like a toad on a porch swing. Well, at 30-something now, she right there beside him, just drooling up the side of her mouth. And I ain't a smart man, but I can see this whole thing was heading south right quick. You better save your life and drive. 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 Well, she looked me up like I was an old used car. So there's work to be done if a working man's what you are. Said you can cut me open, but you still won't know just what I am, ma'am. She said you might have one on, but honey, I'm looking at you and well, I think you're a man. And down that barn I can see her car in a statement I couldn't deny. I figured, well, what's the harm in paying up an old barn and a couple chicken coops anyway? You better save your life and drive. Save your life and drive. Save your life and drive. Save your life and seen a mother try to sell her daughter. Said, look at her there, she's a pure drink of water. She was talking with the chickens and plowing in the dust. Said a woman like that won't give you no fuss. And I looked at the paint peeling from the roof and I said, well, maybe it might be a sin, but give me $100, I can get that old house paint, maybe get that car running again, if you know what I mean. You better save your life and drive. first of the year. Got that house painted and that car out of second gear. Mama sent me the money and she kissed her daughter goodbye. Bye, 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 bye. Stop 5 miles away at a roadside diner and I ordered 2 turkeys on rye. But the boy behind the counter gaped at her, said she looks just like an angel of God. And I slipped out that Joel said to my shoulder, tell him hi and I hope he ain't mad, son. You better save your life and drive. 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 20 miles down that road I had dust in my eye. There was a dark cloud heavy as an iron anvil was hanging in the sky. Saw a barefoot boy just walking there right beside the ditch. And I stopped, cranked up my window, yelled out, come on boy, get in. Thinking my and your lucky stars that I stopped, so I'm coming ain't no place to hide. He said my mom's meanest witch that ever could have switched. You better save your life and drive. Gonna save your life and drive. Save your life and drive. Gonna save your life and drive. Save your life and drive. And I left that boy right beside of the road. You don't talk about your mom that way.
All right. Well, I love it. First of all, I've shared a link. You can buy this album, iTunes, all the kind of regular places. However, Bandcamp is where the artists get the most or the biggest portion of biggest cut. So if you're gonna buy it anywhere, buy it at Bandcamp. But buy it. Go ahead and buy it. But
And or listen to it. That's
yeah.
fine.
But I recommend Bandcamp is what I mean. So yeah, let's go ahead and what kind of questions, comments? Feel free to unmute yourself and let's talk about it. I'll get us kicked off. I'll go first.
That Madden's holding back.
Yeah. No, I understand. So I'm curious, it's not specific to this particular song, but I'm curious kind of the origins of the album, kind of like, did this go from you have one O'Connor related song to like, oh, I could do a whole album, or was this always like the concept?
You're making me think back 8 years now, Jordan. So it started off with Bad Man's Easy. Was the first one I wrote around about 2014. And the Cold That's Forever, Mama Don't Know, and the beginnings of Save Your Life and Drive followed on pretty quickly thereafter. I think a lot of it for me was I was kind of in a transition point in my own life. I was living in a city for the first time of my life. I was kind of away from all of the communities that I'd grown up with and sort of having to form my own community for the first time here in Greensboro. I was in grad school and it's like having my mind open to all these different ways of just approaching the world. Now, I'd encountered O'Connor in college in a couple short stories in one of her novels. Could tell that she was good, admired her, wasn't sure if I liked her. So after I graduated, just sort of like being the nerd that I am, I was like, I'm going to do self-study and read everything that she wrote that was out at the time. And Bruce will probably correct me and tell me that I'm wrong, that I didn't read everything that was out at the time. But I read all her short stories, her 2 novels, her letters, as well as her essays, and and just kind of became fascinated by her, both in how she did her fiction, but also in the reasons why she did her fiction, and also her theological view of the world and of art, which was especially important to me, more so at the time than now, but still definitely influences how I do art. So those songs all sort of came pretty quickly, and I realized, and kind of my philosophy in putting my albums together is don't write to an album, just write the songs. Then the ones that fit together will go out on an album. It's like Hot Pepper Jam is basically all my happy sort of old time songs. Nelson Kind of Wayside's all the tragic old time songs, like which ones sort of fit together. So, yeah, so I presented a couple of those songs at a conference back in 2014 or 15, the Christianity and Literature Conference. I was supposed to read a short story, and I said, "No, actually, I'm going to do some songs." Is that cool? The organizer was like, "All right, cool." And Angela Lema O'Donnell was there, liked the songs, encouraged me to continue with that project. Did the EP, didn't really know at the time that it would go any further than it did. And yeah, kind of came back from several years overseas, 2016 to 20, with kind of 3 album projects in mind. One was Hot Pepper Jam, one was Tarwater, and then one is the next, well, possibly the next one, possibly the one after that, not quite sure yet. One which is Dante's Inferno, Reset to America, but that's a whole nother kettle of fish. And I realized, well, I should probably get to writing the rest of those songs then. And yeah, so for me, especially those first few songs and also some of the later songs, one of the things that drew me to O'Connor was the commonality between, well, her life and my life, and her characters' lives and my lives. Having grown up Pentecostal military family, sort of split between Southern and Northern, kind of within but not quite of every world I was a part of as well. And yes, that sort of intrigued me. And so in a lot of those, I'm writing the characters, but I'm writing them insofar as they've aligned with my own life as well, with some imaginative liberties too. So yeah. So to revisit that after 4 years was quite an adventure and a lot of fun. And I feel like coming back to those first 4 songs and re-recording those also sort of shows just how they developed over time, as I've been performing them live for 5 years at this point, and finding out sort of different ways they could live and breathe. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have questions about the song or in general? There was a question about purchasing the CD.
Yeah.
So asking if it's available in CD.
Yes, on Bandcamp and at the Andalusia Institute. So actually, I'm not sure if I've shipped those yet, but they will be at the Andalusia Institute soon. I'm sorry, not the Andalusia Farm. I'm saying,
no worries, no worries.
Andalusia Farm. Yes, Andalusia Farm will be carrying some copies, and they're up on the Bandcamp. And also, if I'm ever in tour in your area, come on out and say hey, and, and buy a CD. So.
And coming up with Save Your Life and Drive, one of the things I kind of noticed versus Hot Pepper Jam, it seems like maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like the production value is increased, or it feels like there's more layers or something to this, at least this song, to it. Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, no, that's definitely true. Hot Pepper Jam, I recorded that at a friend's house, and like he is a professional. He teaches recording technologies and stuff. We recorded it at his house, and that was kind of pieced together. I'd come in and sing, my part with the, with the instrument, and then we'd throw on fiddle later on, and bass. With Save Your Life, we actually had a full studio right here in Greensboro, Earth Tones. And for that, we recorded all the rhythm sections live. So the drummer, the bassist, and my guitar part, we were recording all those together. So it has sort of that very live feel. And then we cut in everything over top of that. But it was just a better room, a more state-of-the-art room, and a lot more to do with it, a lot more options. So yeah, and like the electric guitar solo there, we plugged that into an attenuator, which basically lets you push up the gain without blowing out the speaker. And the guitarist was like, wait, my guitar can sound like that. And I think that you really sort of feel his well, there's a very country phrase for it, but his overflow of joy as he was playing out that solo. I think that was his first take on it too, but he was having a great old time.
Nice.
Yeah, he had a grin about ready to split his face. So
All right. Well, if everybody's ready, we'll go to the next song, which is Parker's Back. Subsequently, one of my favorite stories.
I've been running from the name my mama gave me as a child. She wanted her a godly boy, didn't know that God was wild. She tried to drag me to revival, so I ran off to the fleet. They stuck me full of pins and needles, they're still itching in my feet. Well, the Navy and my mama, the only ones with me. Something burning deep inside made me tell it straight to you. That Obadiah Elihu's my name. I've been running from it all my life, and I guess that it's a shame. With this restless heart it takes attentive, loving just a tame. And Obadiah Elihu's my name. Well, you look at me as happy as a cat that stepped in and cracked. I can't help it if I would promise to be more than just its scraps. I don't even like your cooking, girl, you'd burn up butter beans. You're so busy praying you forgot the pork and the collard greens. Somehow I married you, I'd almost rather die. All I get are words like ice picks, they're still sticking in my side. And Obadiah Elihu's my name. I've been running from it all my life, and I guess that it's a shame. With this restless heart it takes attentive, loving just a tame. And Obadiah Elihu's my name. We never promised heaven, but this house is cold as hell. How can you love your neighbor if you don't love yourself? And I do confess that I love drinking cigarettes and sin. I got the image of living God tattooed to my skin. But you beat it when you saw him till it burst my brittle heart. His eyes were like burning light, you'd rather love me in the dark. And Obadiah Elihu's my name. I've been running from it all my life, and I guess that it's a shame. But it sure caught my attention when that tree went up in flames. And Obadiah Elihu's my name. And Obadiah Elihu's my name. got my attention. That tree went up in flames. Obadiah, he's mine.
Awesome. Well, all right. Before I dominate this conversation, anyone have questions? Feel free to jump in and go ahead and ask Colin.
Hey Colin, it's your friend Matt.
Alrighty.
How are you? I think you texted me about 10 minutes before we started this.
I did.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I know the answer to because I heard you answer it in another meeting, but I think it's really a great question for you to answer, which is Parker's Back makes several appearances on the album. It seems like the story that is featured more than others. What is it about that story that made it a more prominent feature of the album?
There are a lot of reasons for that. One is, and I told Bruce this shortly before I left Milledgeville this summer, that there are a lot of ways in which I've found that I've kind of identified with O.E. Parker, and not consciously or purposefully, but just like our lives have tended to run a bit parallel. And Bruce said, well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but something along the lines of, well, anybody whose life has lined up with O.E. Parker's needs to write a memoir. But which I might get around to doing in the meantime. You got the music. But so for me, I mean, he's a veteran who's come back and been like, yeah, that was fun, something else to do now, for one. And also, I think one of the biggest conflicts between him and his wife, Sarah Kate, escaping at the moment. Ruth, thank you. Yeah, Ruth. Sarah Ruth. Thank you. Yes, Sarah Ruth is that, he's looking for love fundamentally, right? And he's looking for love and something to sort of fulfill this need and this desire within him. But no matter what he does, he's never quite finding it. And Sarah Ruth, in many ways, I think, and I hesitate to use the word symbol because O'Connor wasn't much on symbols or allegory, but it's kind of this analog to the Pharisees, right? Of this is the way the word of God is, none shall cross it, right? This is the letter of the law. And even when he does the thing, and gets that tattoo of Christ on his back that he thinks will most please her, and brings her the face of God in flesh, right? Just like Jesus was incarnate. What does she do? She beats him, right? And I also grew up in some religious circles where no matter how big your faith was, it was never quite big enough, right? And Pentecostalism, Presbyterianism, both of them have strains where that can be the case. And I don't know that it's so much due to those particular faith traditions as just how faith and religion get wound up in human power and control. But that was definitely something that I'd encountered and that I was kind of exploring in that story too. So.
Yeah, Colin, I wrote about in my first book on O'Connor, I wrote about this idea of of Parker's Back, because Sarah and Ruth, you have the dual Old Testament biblical names.
Yeah.
You have Obadiah and Elihu, and Obadiah is this minor prophet, but Elihu is like the false comforter, and so it's like a positive image and a negative image. And then with Sarah and Ruth, you have Ruth, who's like famously is this portrait of God's promise, and yet Sarah is also she's the one that tells Abraham to have this other kid with Hagar, and and kind of laughs at God's promise, when the angel comes. So, they both have these kind of dual sides and these kind of conflicting sides. And so I feel like, she kind of embraces the Sarah, and sort of rejects the Ruth, and he sort of, by the end, rejects the Elihu piece and sort of embraces that prophetic side, the Obadiah side.
Right.
And so, yeah, I love that the album is tinged with Parker's Back.
Cool. And it's funny too. In my particular Presbyterian church I was a part of, Elihu was held up as he was the one who was right. Yes, God told him to shut up, but like his analysis was correct, right? Yes, and also I think one of the things I love about that story is that is where her theological vision most sort of clearly shines through.
Agreed. One of her last stories she wrote.
Yeah. And some have argued that she was sort of taking off all the gloves. She was like, you know what, I'm going to even show sort of what I'm doing here and just put it out here in this story. So I think that's another reason it's fascinating to me, and the characters are so fascinating. I don't know that everybody without that background and familiarity will necessarily get it, but she was all right with that too. So
yeah, absolutely. Any other questions about Parker's Back?
And real quick, the reason I got up in the middle of the song is Yuli decided to come and join me. He was actually
nice. I love it.
Yeah, he was howling along to the harmonica there for a little bit.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I was mentioning before everybody joined, I got a great opportunity to see Wildcat, which is the new Ethan Hawke directed film with Maya Hawke's starring in the lead, playing Flannery O'Connor. And this is Parker's Back is one of the stories that they used in there. So it was great seeing that depicted. I loved seeing it on screen.
I'm stoked to see it.
Yeah. I was able to talk to Ethan Hawke just a little bit, and I mentioned, like I asked about the possibility of bringing it to Georgia College, because that's something our president asked me to ask.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully we can bring it.
That'd be awesome.
All right. So, any other questions? Sorry, I don't want to cut anybody off. Is a transcript of all the lyrics available?
Yep. Yes. So they are all up on Bandcamp, but also, Bruce, I can just send you the lyrics too. So I do have them all in one place. So
send them all to me personally. Yeah,
I will do.
Best way to say it.
I will do.
Okay.
And anyone who's ever been in Bruce's office at Georgia College knows everything's hyper organized to a T. So he's gonna have its own. It's gonna have its own folder and place.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You're going to print them off, annotate them.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
You're retired, Bruce. You're retired. I don't have to put up with your grading anymore.
Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll go to the next song. And so our next song is Run to the River.
That river is wide, that river is deep. It's got a long way to run before it rolls into the sea. I hear paradise is far away, so I'll follow its call down to the river to pray. Is it wide, is it deep enough to wash my sins away? I don't know, but I still go to the river to pray. city lights, imitate the stars, and drown them in the void behind the neon signs and bars. My faithful feet, they never strayed, but led me down to join them, down to the river to pray. Is it wide, is it deep enough to wash my sins away? I don't know, but I still go to the river to pray. Stop by a farm where I'd had kin. There weren't nothing there but a top paper shack and a pig in the pen. That pig got out, chased me down the lane, and I ran, yes I ran, down to the river to pray. Is it wide, is it deep enough to wash my sins away? I don't know, but I still go to the river to pray. That river's wide, that river is deep. It's got a long way to run before it rolls into the sea. If paradise is far away, so I'll follow its call down to the river to pray. Is it wide, is it deep enough to wash my sins away? I don't know, but I still go to the river to pray. Is it wide, is it deep enough to wash my sins away? I don't know, but I still go to the river to pray.
I don't
All
think
right, great. So go ahead, Jess, sorry.
it's not really a question, it's more of a comment, but to me, that song reminds me of the prayer journal in that it has this kind of earnest simplicity that I just really like. And that's probably my second favorite on the album. I really like that song a lot.
Cool. Well, thank you. And yeah, that one I was trying to go very simple because, of course, that story is written, with the point of view of a young child, right? And which was an interesting challenge for me. Mama Don't Know also is, but I think that one I sort of consciously stuck with the child's point of view a lot more. With Run to the River, I think that I sort of brought in my own personal adult perspective a bit more. But then also sort of like I was trying to particularly reference, the classic Down to the River to Pray, Down to the River to Pray, was sort of consciously referencing that folk tune, originally a spiritual as well. So, yeah, I was trying to keep it simple and stark. And I've had some friends who have, commented, that they could hear some other sort of musical elements to it, which I think could work. But also, I think I like it to sort of as quiet and stark as it is. And I usually play that one solo, even with the band. Then we, all come back together afterwards. So, yeah, that, I've got some sort of thoughts about sort of how all that one came together, but I want to open it up to questions first. So, just pulling up the lyrics to remember what I wrote. Yeah, any other questions about that one?
This is a kind of general question. We do have someone who's just joining us. But I'm curious whether as you're writing, if you have a tune or a melody or kind of a general like vibe in your head for the songs, or if you kind of write the lyrics and then start playing around with the music, because I'm just thinking about the different kind of I guess just like tone of some of the songs. There's a range, and of course O'Connor has a range as well. But just thinking about if you consciously matched up kind of the tune with the story, or if you just saw where you were going in your process.
Yeah, so for me, usually it is kind of a combination of a tune and a line together. And then usually kind of how my process goes is sort of figure out where the music wants to go and then figure out the rest of the story. So like this song, I had the first two lines and the chorus kind of done for several months. And then I was on my way to a gig. I was like, I kind of want to play this song tonight, and I need to record it tomorrow. So I should probably finish writing it. So I wrote it on the road, actually, down to that gig in Pittsburgh. Hey, Mark, how's it going? Mark produced my last album, so no more comments about Hot Pepper Jam, Jordan. And no, but yeah, so that's usually how it goes. I'm trying to think. Can't think of one where I wrote the words first. If anything, it'd be melody first, but usually it's kind of melody and a line together, and then figuring out where the music wants to go, and then where the story wants to go following that. So, but it varies for everybody too. And some of these songs I whipped out in a week. I've had one song that I wrote in 15 minutes that was halfway decent, I thought. And then Save Your Life and Drive took me, I think, about a year or two. I had like the first two verses, and I think the last one. And then about a year and a half later, I was sitting on an AC vent in Kuwait, waiting on a C-130. Bunch of Marines walking by, and there's a classical guitar there in the rec area, and I was like, I think it's time to finish up this one. So, and like musically, that one started off a lot differently too. It was still a blues tune, but it was more of a finger picked thing, a little bit closer to like the acoustic version of A New Tattoo. Was kind of what that one sounded like. But then it turned into a whole on rocker. So and sometimes, and one of the fun things too about playing these live is realizing that you can do them in different ways. So like how A New Tattoo ended up on the album, there's a very rock version. That's how it started off. And I was messing around with it and I realized this could be a slide blues tune, and did it that way. Both of those ended up on the album. Then there's a third way that we sometimes play it live as well. So yeah, that's one of the fun things about live music is that you can mess around with it and see what works for it. So, and which ones and how they best fit the lyrics too. That's always really important. But I figure if the music lets the lyrics breathe too, we can do it that way.
Listening to this song, The River, I was thinking about I remember the first time I read that story. And it's definitely one of those stories where, you're just like, what just happened, so thinking about like what songs or what stories you were kind of drawn to here.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of curious, we talked a little bit about it with Parker's Back, but I'm just curious, how you chose the source material or the stories you were going to write about.
Yeah, I think it was largely just the ones that hit me the most and then stuck with me. I mean, all of them do to some degree, but I think also like had a personal resonance to them. Because again, I'm writing a lot of these songs from in the first person, right, from my perspective, so I have to kind of feel them as well. And so it's easiest then when I find those stories where, again, those stories and those characters sort of align most with my own life. And then it's this process of exploration of both the characters and also myself throughout it. So, yeah. See you,
Any
Matt. Thanks a lot for popping in, man.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Any other questions?
If no other questions, just a couple lyrical notes too. This one ended up getting a lot of ideas that I'd had in my notebook for a while. It's like the idea about the city lights imitating the stars and drowning them. That one had been in my notebook for a while, and I finally found a place to fit it. And it's and the pig in the pen. It's funny. A lot of the first comments I got on the artwork were, "Man, I like the pig," and I noticed they were all from friends of mine who are pig farmers, right? And then I finally got one person who's like, "Man, I love the pig." And I was like, "You're the first person to say that. He's not a pig farmer." So that one, and that verse too, that image of stopping by a farm where I'd had Ken, that sort of idea of passing home that wasn't home anymore, had been in my head for a while. Um, and then that particular line about the pig sort of got its start. I was my partner works at a pork and beef farm right north of here, up in Reedsville, and I was up there helping her work on farm tours one weekend when she was farm sitting, and one of the pigs got out. And let me tell you, when a 500-pound boar is walking your way outside the fence, you get to thinking about a lot of things. So that worked its way in the song too. So
Well, I love the cover. I'm glad you mentioned the cover. And what I love most is that the more time I spend looking, the more of these little details I start noticing, and all these O'Connor references. I mean, it looks aesthetically beautiful anyway, but as an O'Connor scholar, like I just love these references that I can find in the cover.
awesome. Kelly Wills, Brainflower Designs, she did that, and she's an old friend of mine. She does stuff for a lot of great people these days now. She actually taught me clawhammer banjo about a decade ago now. And I'd first approached her for the peacock feathers cover because I just loved her artwork. She said, "Oh, I love O'Connor." I'm like, "Oh, well, cool." So yeah, when this opportunity came up, at first she's like, "I'm booked way out to like the summer." I was like, "All right, we'll release it after the summer then, because I want your artwork on this." I'm so grateful that she was able to pitch in on that. So yeah, her work is great.
Jess, you want to jump in here with the river pig story?
Oh yeah, I just was curious. I thought of it listening to, Run to the River, but and last year and this earlier this year, I paddle the Oconee fairly regularly, and the most popular stretch is to go from the Greenway to Central States boat ramp.
Huh?
And at Central States boat ramp for months and months and months, somebody's pig had gotten out and just lived at the river boat ramp. So when you paddled, and you come around that last curve and you climb out the boat ramp, there would just be this pig there waiting on you. And people, of course, had started feeding it. And so it became
It was my
really, it was clearly domestic, pig. It was not a wild hog. But it would run up to you and try to, get you to give it some Cheetos or whatever. And I think I gave it a banana because I thought, surely pigs don't need to be eating Cheetos and granola bars, but
they will eat anything, but yes.
I was like, this poor pig, but it grew and it grew and it got really, I don't know what happened to it, but I just thought, that's a very Milledgeville O'Connor-esque kind of thing. I have pictures somewhere in my Google Drive. We would just call it River Pig. And I would ask every time we would go kayaking or see people who kayaked, I said, "Have you seen the River Pig?"
That's
So
how the story of the river troll looking for his tax came about, right?
yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, I didn't know that story, Jess. All right, so we're gonna play the last song of the evening, "Mama Don't Know Where Heaven Is," and then I've got a question for you, kind of more overall about thinking about all these stories. But if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Mama, I don't know where heaven is, but I hear that's where you've gone. Mama, I don't know where heaven is, oh Lord, but I'll be there with you before too long. Well, Father, He says you've gone away. There ain't heaven nor a hell. Father, He says you've gone away, and you ain't back, you ain't well. Mama, I don't know where heaven is, but I hear that's where you've gone. Mama, I don't know where heaven is, oh Lord, but I'll be there with you before too long. Well, sister, she was a baby, and I hear that she's up in heaven too. Sister, she was a baby, oh Lord, and I wonder if she's seen you. 'Cause there's a boy out on the street says you've seen Jesus' face. Way up in the stars. He says there ain't no more people crying. I want to be there where you are. It's Mama, I don't know where heaven is, but I hear that's where you've gone. Mama, I don't know where heaven is, oh Lord, oh, but I'll be there with you. Yes, I'll be there with you. Yes, I'll be there with you before too long.
Well, first of all, I love how you're able to inhabit the persona of these characters. But you're able to take the lame shall enter first, which is one of the kind of darker stories that she has, and you make it seem pretty positive. Uh,
Well, and I think so in the folk tradition, like you think of like Tom Dooley, Lawson Family, and there's a lot of these old folk songs where you listen to the music and it's like, yeah, we're having a party, we're having a hoedown, life is good. But like you listen to it and it's talking about some really, really horrible, horrible stuff, right? Cruel Willie's another one, right? And I think, and I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze it too much, but it's it's an interesting way of catching people's ear. And because I mean, how many people listen to lyrics on the first go? I don't know many people who do. A lot of the time I don't. but it's sort of that way of catching, making it memorable, and then as you sort of sit down and listen to it, you realize, oh, this is what's going on, right? Um, and I think there's also sort of an element of being all right with both darkness and light in the world, and both sort of coexisting. That I think is probably in that as well. It's like that's life, right? Um, but also, and that's one of those songs that started off very differently musically when I first wrote it. It was, if anything, a little bit more upbeat, but in a very sort of different feel. It's kind of hard to describe it because I didn't really know what I was doing with it at the time either. And we actually recorded it that way for the Peacock Feathers. And then, like, I was getting ready to leave town and sort of sat up in my bed that night. I was like, no, this is how I need to do it. And I was like, it needs to be a Hank Williams, Patsy Cline sort of honky tonk feel. And I figured out how to do it that night. Texted my friend Joe Rinaldi. I said, hey, can we re-record this tomorrow morning before I leave town? He said, yeah, sure. So we did that, and then he and Stacy laid on their parts, and I love what they did with that in the Peacock Feathers recording of it too. This one basically took that same sort of format. It hasn't changed much since then, but we also added the steel guitar, which Deshaun Hickman, he's a fantastic sacred steel player from up in Mount Airy, right near to here. And the sacred steel tradition, basically, they were in churches that didn't have organs. So they would basically be playing all those parts on the steel guitar. So there's a lot of sort of like repeating of the vocal lines on the steel guitar, these sort of open chords that sort of evoke the choir and everything too. So I think by adding him in, like, steel guitar obviously is very common in country, but bringing in his particular style, I was trying to sort of bring in this church element too. And I was definitely trying to conjure that with the structure of the lyrics. And you've got father, you've got mother, and then you've got the boy out on the street, for brother. I'm sorry, you've got father, sister, mother, and then the boy out on the street too, which is a very common sort of thing, especially in a lot of spirituals. So I was trying to sort of carry all that just within the structure of the song itself. And but yeah, and when Deshaun first heard that song, he's one of those who really listens to the lyrics. He said, man, I had a hard time getting through that song without crying, because I think he just lost his aunt a couple weeks before we first played that song together. And so then I asked him if he wanted to be in on the recording. He said absolutely. So yeah, and if you haven't checked out Deshaun, definitely do. His steel playing is amazing.
Yeah, there are a lot of comments in the chat about the steel guitar. And then Ashley also mentioned she wanted to show some love. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Ashley. See ya.
Are there other questions for Colin? I just wanted to say, we only have a few minutes left. First of all, I'm going to put in a link to an interview that just came out with Colin in Pace Magazine. That's a very well-respected magazine. He's getting a lot of positive press for Tarwater, so I'm really excited about it. I love, I'm always interested in how recording artists are so drawn to Flannery O'Connor. There's been so many, she seems to have inspired as many singer, songwriter, musical artists as she has writers, and so I'm just curious if you could kind of comment on that and talk about your inspiration.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned this, so I think one of the impetuses of I'm an English teacher, by the way, of writing these songs sort of directly from the perspective of her characters is, I was reading back in 2014, it was some interview with Bruce Springsteen where he said, yeah, I wrote the Nebraska album after basically binge reading Flannery O'Connor. And I think what you really see in that album, and he goes into this in depth too, but just reading the lyrics, you can see it, is he becomes a lot less interested in stating a point and making a moral of it. He becomes a lot more focused on concrete detail, really drawing out the characters with these quick little stabs of insight in both what they say and in what he chooses to describe about them. And she describes that in her essays too, where sketching is a really important practice for her, to just sort of draw out those major lines very quickly. You don't have to fill in the whole thing. You can draw out those major lines and move on, which is a really important skill for a songwriter too. So I think that's a lot of it. And then there are also, some songwriters who are just sort of intrigued by what they see as her sort of dark view of the world. I think there's some of those. And then there are some who are just sort of attracted to kind of what they see as almost an absurdist take on the world as well. So I think that they're drawn to her for many different reasons. But I think in my opinion, the best songwriters who deal with her, however directly or indirectly, are inspired sort of by her just attention to creative detail and how she draws those pictures so quickly. Again, you see that in Springsteen, you see that in Lucinda Williams. I don't know that John Prine was familiar with O'Connor, but like he's a master of that as well, too, where he's drawing these very intimate, personal portraits that still sort of burst out into this broader reality. So. And I think one other thing too, like I think John Prine and Bob Dylan are two really interesting writers to compare. I would almost compare them to, like, in order, T.S. Eliot versus Robert Frost, right? They're all four of them are dealing with really big ideas, but Dylan and Eliot sort of deal with them from the outside in, from the grand down into the minuscule. Whereas Prine and Frost, I feel like, sort of deal with them from the inside out, or from the small to the large. And I think O'Connor was doing that too. That's what I prefer to do in my songwriting as well. So.
Yeah, I love like how, I love how your songs, not only do you kind of inhabit a lot of these characters' voice, but you have your own kind of interpretation of the story that you see through the song. So, as a music fan and an O'Connor fan, I dig it. I love the marriage, and I love the extended thread that kind of pulls through. So yeah, it's a great album, great accomplishment. I just put the link in there again in the chat. Does anybody else have any other questions? Jess mentioned that your number one, or your first place new album of the week on Twangville. So
that is thanks to having a bunch of Flannery O'Connor friends and a large family. So, rock the vote.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Does
And thanks,
anybody else
Jess.
have...
I know that you threw in a vote too.
Nice.
Vote early, vote often, right?
Absolutely. Does anybody else have questions or comments? Anything you'd like to say or final thoughts? Bruce, you've been silent. Okay, yes. So we've got comments about the album cover. Thanks, Betty Jean. Yes. Yeah.
I'm wondering,
Thank you.
do you plan on playing in Milledgeville, or are we on your live music?
You are. Yes, I'm talking to Andalusia Farm about being down there for the birthday weekend, as well as the childhood home. So we're just trying to figure out. Yes, I'm talking to both of them, sort of trying to figure out the scheduling, and then maybe doing a bar gig down there too. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, sounds great.
Yep. And I know I just sent a CD down to the Creek in Macon as well. They're the local Americana radio station. So. But yes, live wise, I'm looking at that weekend. So if you have any other ideas, let me know.
Yeah, how about the college radio station?
I have not sent one to them yet, but yes, I will do that.
Okay, awesome. I listen to it all the time.
Awesome.
Hello from Florida.
Hey,
You might get in touch with the people at the Marjorie Cannon Rollins Historic Site.
Okay.
They're very interested. Marjorie was a big fan of Flannery's, you probably know. Once ordered a bunch of peacocks trying to emulate Flannery, and had to pay somebody to come and take them away from the creek because it was not a good fit for Cross Creek at all.
The dangers in attempting to
it was bad. It
to
was
be
bad.
influenced by, right?
Yeah, but they're very interested in having associated people come. They just had one of Hemingway's grandsons last weekend, drew a big crowd at Cross Creek.
Cool.
The one whose father was Gigi, who was a cross dresser and so on. So they love anything.
Yeah.
And so they'd love you. They just love you. They have,
Awesome.
in fact, there's some backup bands you could probably get to play with you.
Okay.
There's
cool.
one guy whose mama works at the creek who would be love to back you up. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's look for there's two groups. One is the farm. It's called the Marjorie Kinnan Rollins Historic Site, and the other is the Rollins Society, which is much more academic and uppity. But get in with the farm people. They'll have you come and play on Marjorie's back porch. You'll love it.
Cool. That sounds great. And
all right, I hope to see you there.
As Bruce can testify, I can fake my way around academics sometimes.
Where do you actually live, Colin?
I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay,
actually.
So you're not that far. I'm actually driving all night to Atlanta tonight. I've got cancer now, so I'm not doing much. I used to do the Chautauqua circuit, but there's a wonderful conference in Atlanta at the airport tomorrow. The race, the Race Amity Conference, which we have now proven that Zora Neale Hurston was actually there, the very first one in May of 1921. And so we actually have a picture of her that we have proven is her because of the ruffle on her dress. So it's going to they're showing that if any of you are in the Atlanta area tomorrow night, they're showing a wonderful Florida woman did a documentary of Zora called Jump at the Sun, and it's going to be shown tomorrow night. And Zora's own great niece is going to be there. I've never met Lois. So Lucy taught me I have to drive all night to Atlanta, which is not my favorite thing to do. You know that. You stay out of Atlanta as you can at all, but I've got to go. So I'll be standing on Georgia ground tomorrow, trying my best not to head toward Milledgeville, but my car may head toward Milledgeville. If you get anywhere near Milledgeville, if you're an O'Connor scholar, you get anywhere near Milledgeville, you're sunk.
It just sort of grabs you, doesn't it?
Well, I was hoping if I listened to this right before I left, it would kind of, do me good, and maybe I wouldn't have to go to Milledgeville. So pray for me that I don't end up in Milledgeville.
Our prayers are with you.
Thank you. Nice to see y'all. It's so good. I was hoping Sarah, and the worst thing is that Sarah Gordon is speaking this weekend, isn't she? Sarah Gordon, I believe, is giving a lecture in Sunday afternoon. So yeah, I'm hoping to clear out before that happens because I just love Sarah. And I spend many hours under Sarah's tutelage in the old days. So thank you all. This was a true delight.
Fantastic. Great chatting with you, Betty Jean.
Okay. I hope to see you at Cross Creek.
Sounds good. Cross Creek. Okay. I got it down.
Cross Creek. Yep.
All right. Does anybody else have any final thoughts for Colin? If not, you can get it, Amazon, iTunes, where, anywhere. But Bandcamp is where I got it. So I would recommend it. Otherwise, thank you so much, Colin. We really appreciate it. Thank you for letting Andalusia Institute do this. Thanks for giving us your time. And
it was a pleasure.
Yeah, we love it. It's great.
It was a pleasure. And also, this wasn't mentioned before, but thanks a ton to National Endowment of the Humanities and the Flannery O'Connor Institute for having me down to Georgia College and getting to meet a bunch of y'all wonderful folks this summer too. And really getting to study here. And I do want to say too, the Paste interview quoted me as saying it was like Nerd Summer Camp, which I did say. I meant that as a positive. And I said afterwards, it was great. And that part was not included. So it was like Nerd Summer Camp, and it was amazing. Bruce is the best camp daddy ever.
my wife always calls it Flannery Camp.
Right.
And that was, when Allie Arendt and I did the Reconsidering O'Connor book, that was like our joke title for the book was Flannery Camp or Camp Flannery. So yeah. And also want to throw a big shout out to Jessica McQuain, who coordinated this event and does amazing work with the Writing for Success Grant Project. And we love having our Andalusia Institute. So thanks so much, Jess. All right.
Thanks.
Well, thanks everyone. I really appreciate you coming, and stay tuned for more programming from Andalusia Institute, and make sure to check out Tarwater.
Cheers, y'all.
Have a great night.